It was routine now, Corinne thought, the waste of food. But routine was more essential. For 5 days since she, her daughter Samantha, and her brother Kenneth had arrived at their parents' house, breakfast had begun with cereal and ended with toast, a fluid relay of hands and plates and dirty napkins and crumbs. Sure enough, after about 2 bites, Corinne had put bread in the toaster. Her mother let the spoon drop and pushed the bowl of cereal away. "This got mushy. Can I have something else?" Samantha stood to collect the discarded bowl. Her mother looked up and smiled. You're so, her hands flew up in the air above her head. "Look at you." "Yep, I'm pretty tall," Samantha said. "Do you want your toast, Grandma, with guava jelly?" Yes, toast, Corinne thought. Always toast, but you had to ask. "Yes, toast," Mom said decisively, "with the butter and the jelly. And where's Patrick?" "Dad's back in the office with Kenneth, Mom," Corinne said. The breakfast relay was a little different this morning since the men were in the office down the hall getting the bank paperwork together. Samantha rounded one end of the bar counter to deposit the cereal bowl in the sink as Corinne circled the other end with a glass of water. "Thanks, Samantha," she said. "Samantha," her mother said. "Now, she's the chubby one, isn't she?" Corinne set the glass down next to the pink pill organizer. Samantha was preparing the toast, her scalp line turning red under her sandy brown hair. "That was a long time ago, Mom, Corinne." Corinne set out the pills. "When she was a baby. All babies are chubby. Remember how roly-poly I was? Samantha's a basketball player in high school now, remember? Look how tall she is." Her mother squinted at Samantha, then smiled. "Oh, of course," she said pleasantly. Then she gazed across the wide, great room to the wall-length windows that looked over at the Wahoo Beach. The waves riding and receding and riding and receding in a manageable tempo. Her fingers touched the scarf she'd worn for 5 days. It was a lovely cotton silk with lacy rolls of aquatic blues and greens. Samantha had finished it on the plane. Samantha passed the plate of toast across the bar counter, and Corinne set it in front of her mother, who regarded it as suspiciously as she did the pill sitting in front of her. Her father, barefoot, t-shirts, and shorts hanging loosely, came into the great room from the office, where Kenneth was swearing loudly at the printer. Her father squeezed her mother's shoulder slightly. Then he sat down. "Honey, eat your toast first, then take your pills," he said. "But I hate them," her mom pouted. It was definitely a family trait, that pout. Not cute, not beguiling, just immature and unattractive. Samantha had it. Kenneth's daughters did too. Corinne had struggled for years to not have that pout, especially after she met and married Andy. Even when he explained that he'd grown up with 4 sisters and was therefore immune to all that pouting. A likely story, she teased him. He began buckling to it as soon as Samantha was born. Making it skip her generation was hard work and sort of fruitless, since she was the only one that even noticed. "I know, dear." Her father picked up and rattled his own blue pill organizer. "Look, I'm taking mine too. We'll take them together. We gotta stay healthy." "I don't know why," her mother said. "Well, should I stop too? Maybe just see what happens," her father said cheerfully. "Grandpa, come on," Samantha said uncertainly. "It's gotta happen sometime," he said. "I'm just happy I woke up this morning." Just woke up. The words echoed as Corinne wiped down the counter. One of the things a body does, a simple thing really, involuntary. How simple was it after so many decades? Just as simple to not do, if you knew how. The heart could quietly bump along, then decide, that's it. I'm tired now. I've done as much as this marathon as I can. Or it wasn't the heart. Instead, it was the brain, or blood, or another biomechanical wonder that busts in and breaks up the party. Something that decides to give up and send the rest of it swirling down, draining away like a whirlpool, steady in its violence and purpose. "Hey, I woke up on the right side of the beach today," her father was saying, and now Samantha laughed. Corinne wrung out the sponge. "You guys," she said in mock aspiration, but enjoying her father's ever-present humor, the lightness that recalled her childhood. Her parents, they took their pills together, one at a time. It only took seconds, but it was such a chore every time. Her mother glowered with every glug. "Ta-da!" Her father smacked his lips after the last pill, something that used to make her mother roll her eyes with a smile. "Now we're done until tonight." "Until no," her mother snapped, and started eating the toast. Corinne wandered down the hall, lured by that goddamn piece of shit spitting from the office. Her older brother emerged, a sheath of papers in his hands. Kenneth fanned the stack like a deck of cards. "I finally got it to work. This son of a bitch needs to be replaced." "Put that on the list," Corinne said dryly, and followed him into the green room. "Here, Dad," Kenneth said. "We need to sign these top ones before going to the bank." Her mother looked up. Her lips were slick with butter. "We're going to the bank?" "Yes, dear," her father said. "Do I have to go?" "Yes, we all do." "Well, Sam doesn't have to go." "I'll stay here and feed the cat when she shows up," Samantha said. Her mother was instinctively alert. "Where is Menai?" she said. "She's probably outside hunting geckos, having a blast killing things," Corinne said. Along with breakfast, every morning had been an adventure in entrails. "Don't you want to go into town? We can get some malasadas from the bakery." Sweets, especially sugar donuts, was usually a solid bribe. Her mother relaxed. "I guess." She poked at the stack of papers. The top few pages slid away. "What are these?" The men exchanged looks. Her father said, "They're for the bank, honey. We have to go to the bank today and give them these papers and sign in front of the notary." "But it's so much paper," she said. "What does it say?" "It's about us, honey," her father said. "It's about the house and our money. We need to make sure that everything is taken care of so Corinne and Kenneth know what to do, well, in case something happens to us." Her mother looked up with such terror on her face that Corinne felt her chest contract, as though something had already happened, as though it hadn't. "What's going to happen to us?" Her father covered her mother's hands with him. "Nothing, my sweetheart," he said gently. "It's how everyone protects themselves. We need to sign these papers and then take them to the bank and make everything official. Okay?" "Oh, okay," her mother's voice wavered. "What do I do?" "Well, we're just going to sign your name." Her father gave her mother a pen, and she clutched it and she stared at the pages, and Corinne wondered what she actually saw. On top of everything else, her vision was deteriorating. Unless it was more than her vision. Corinne knew her mom was starting to have trouble with the written language, but had she been faking it for even longer than they'd realized? Her parents did crossword puzzles together every day, but Corinne had never double-checked her work. She wondered if her dad did. She suspected not. Kenneth sat down. "Here, Mom, see the sticky notes?" He flipped to the first page with a sticky note. Then he reached for her hand, ready to position it over the signature line. She jerked her hand away. "Get your own," she said. Kenneth pulled away, startled. Corinne had a smirk, resisting the urge to throw a damp dish towel at his head in a perverse way. It was fun to watch Kenneth's patience being tested. It had never been his strength, nor hers, really, which was why there was a certain smug satisfaction in being able to hold on to her grace longer than he could. He mumbled a half apology and made his third beeline of the morning for the coffee maker. Samantha, who had slipped outside to look for Melly the cat, came back in. No cat, she mouthed, her face flushed from the warmth. Corinne turned her face away from her parents. Just in case, crazy thought, they could read her lips. I don't know how this is going to work, she muttered, pushing her own sweaty, sandy brown hair off her forehead. Her medication's still working, Kenneth said. She's still lucid enough. She knows we have to do it. But she doesn't really understand what it is, Corinne said. If we get to the bank and she says the wrong thing, they won't let her sign if they suspect that she's not competent. You remember what happened with Andy's parents and all those lawsuits? Then what? Kenneth shrugged almost helplessly. For a moment, he looked so much like their father. And she knew that she would look exactly like their mother. But that was not the issue, of course. Like you said, Andy's parents, Kenneth said. If something happens to Dad, Mom can't make these decisions. We should have done this years ago, but Dad could. Well, he couldn't, and we don't have a choice. It's now or never. We wait any longer, and it'll even be more of a cluster mess. He looked sideways at Samantha, who was preparing some toast for herself. She's 18, Ken. She knows all the words by now, Corinne turned to Samantha. Do you want anything from town? I'll have some shave ice. But I can wait, Samantha said. I wonder if they make shave ice with tequila, Corinne said. Liquor before beer, Samantha said. You shouldn't know that, Corinne covered her mouth in fake shock. Samantha grabbed her hand and squeezed it, grinning. I'm 18, Mom. I know all the words. Kenneth disappeared for a shower, and Samantha sat at the dining room table with her Kindle and her toast. Corinne took the broom and dustpan to the floor and watched her father guide her mother through the paperwork. Petulantly, her mother would press onward, then stop in dark frustration. She knew the letters on her own, especially when it came to her own signature. R-O-W-E-N-A. But they weren't tying together the way they used to, and it didn't help that her handwriting had never been great anyway. She was a natural lefty, forced into right-handedness as a child. Great, her father said. Now let's do this one. He brought another piece of paper out, and then another, and then another. What's this? I just did it. What's this page for? Just one more, sweetheart. But I'm tired. If her mom was tired, Corinne couldn't even imagine how her father felt. Her cell phone chimed. Andy had sent a picture of Eric holding a full-size shovel in the backyard garden. The shovel was taller than Eric, and even at a distance, she could see the gap missing from his front teeth. Andy's message: found a way to keep the kid busy. Child labor rocks. She texted back a smiley face and a heart. She imagined for a moment, not knowing them, her husband, her own 2 children, and missed them all in one terrible heartsick moment, as though it were truth that they were gone, already forgotten. She wanted to just throw the broom into the cabinet and smash the glass and run outside and dive headlong into the ocean and wash those horrible thoughts away and come up clean. She kept sweeping. She and Andy needed to talk. She needed to ask, if we had another 40 years together, but it ended like this, what would you want to do? She didn't know what she wanted. She didn't even know how he would answer. They had skirted the subject when it was his parents. She shouldn't have, and they could not anymore. Kenneth eventually emerged. His hair was wet. His t-shirt was a little damp. All that running of his had kept his middle-aged layer around his waist a shadow of their dad's. She wondered what his blood pressure and stress level would be like if he weren't an avid runner. She tugged her loose t-shirt down over her own little belly. Maybe she should start running. We gotta get going or we're gonna be late, Kenneth said to the room in general. Yes, I know, she said. She may have forced the obnoxious pout to skip a generation, but she couldn't change the reedy agitation in her voice. Neither could Kenneth change the emphasis that punctuated his words when business was at stake, just like their father had been before relaxed-fire retirement. Her father kissed the top of her mother's head. Honey, I'm going to get dressed, all right, and I'll just be in the other room. He ambled down the hall, hitching up his shorts. He'd actually had lost a lot of weight. Corinne saw now and was actually closer in size to his son than she realized. His hair seemed thinner. Caring for Mom was taking its toll. This was a conversation for later. What would happen when he couldn't anymore? Just last night, after 5 days of gentle nagging, her father had begrudgingly accepted that a housekeeper would be helpful, or someone to help out during the day if they both had doctor's appointments or needed groceries. But he emphatically rejected the idea of hiring a live-in. Kenneth had huffed off in lieu of letting his temper get the best of him. And Samantha quietly disappeared into the bedroom to watch TV. Corinne watched them retreat, and then she turned to her father, ready to lay out her own reasoning. Instead, she saw that her father was in tears. "She's mine at night," he said. "Just mine." Her mother was half asleep on the couch in front of the Hawaiian concerts they loved so much, and Corinne tucked a blanket around her mother and made their nightly cups of tea and sat down to watch the concert. So, one thing at a time. Today was making sure her parents were taken care of, that the executorships, the money, the legalities, all that crap, she now thought of it collectively, was handled and firmly in place in case of crises, so that if something did happen to Dad when everyone was back in California and they couldn't fly over right away, Mom wouldn't be left alone to make the decisions that she was not capable of making. Samantha sat down where her grandfather had been. "Grandma, I have some pictures," she said, "of Oliver, you know, our dog at home, and some pictures of me playing basketball." She sat down and carefully moving the folders to make room for the Kindle. Her mother's fingers followed the neat stack of folders. "What are those?" "Papers you and Grandpa just signed," Samantha said. "For the bank." "Why did I sign them? Am I dying?" her mother said. There was the smallest of pauses. Corinne kept sweeping, and she didn't even look up. She didn't speak. Samantha was quiet. But why? Trying not to cry, trying to find a thoughtful answer her grandmother would understand, trying to find strength in lying. Corinne couldn't tell. Just letting her child hang out there like that made her feel like a traitor. But part of her wanted to hear if Samantha had any new answers. "No, Grandma," Samantha said, her voice rawly gentle. "It's just papers." Her daughter's voice was suddenly a stranger to her, just as her mother's was. No, the voices were strange only if Corinne didn't already know where they came from, if she matched the voices with the body she saw. Her mother's gentle strength swirled from this lanky, lovely body, while Samantha's young voice rippled away from the still well-postured but trembling woman with uncombed gray hair. It was a changing of tides, a meeting of the waves. Leaving the house was its own journey. First, Corinne had to make sure that her mother had gone to the bathroom. Getting her dressed was another chore. Her mother's skin was so sensitive, and she only wore elastic and cotton, and lots of it. And then there was the car ride. Help her up, buckle her into the SUV, reassure her about the gravelly road they drove for 10 minutes into town. It was cloudless and blue. No trace of the tropical rain they'd had for 2 days. It was the kind of temperature that blanketed you, the perfect blend of 81 degrees and a bit of humidity, the kind of temperature you just didn't feel no matter what you were wearing, the kind of temperature Corinne's body yearned for during winters at home. Now it felt more oppressive than usual. Her armpits sprang a leak as she circled the car to help her mother out. She linked their arms as they ambled across the parking lot, past an overgrown bougainvillea, ranging with fuchsia and orange. Kenneth and her father were muttering ahead of them. "What are they saying?" her mother said, pouting. "It's so loud I can't hear them. What are they saying?" "They're talking to themselves, Mom. Don't worry." Even just a couple years ago, Corinne would have never said those words because as the matriarch, what business would her mother not want to know? Even now, when she was dimly aware that she would not understand, she wanted to know. They entered the bank, a small, flat-footed old building with a tidy interior. Alejandro was there as they came in, and he approached to shake everyone's hand. "Aloha, Mr. and Mrs. Burton," he said. "Mrs. Burton, what a lovely scarf, very nani." Her mother beamed and fingered it vainly. "My granddaughter," she faltered, then she forged ahead. "My granddaughter made it for me." Corinne knew she wasn't sure that it was Samantha who had made it, but she was going to be sure about it for now. Something about being around non-related people revved some will in her brain, and it seemed to snap her back to recognition, like she knew she had to be her old self, or close to it, at this moment. That this next hour, it was critical. "Just beautiful," Alejandro said. Was he scrutinizing her? He knew them. It was a small town. "Corinne, Kenneth, nice to see you again. Why don't you come with me and we'll take care of this paperwork and send you on your way to enjoy the rest of the day. Off to get some shave ice after this?" "Oh no, it's too chilly for that," her mother said. "I'm sweating bullets," Kenneth muttered. "And I'm having a hot flash, so I win," Corinne whispered back, and Kenneth actually laughed. They followed Alejandro to his desk. Her parents sat down while Kenneth and Corinne waited for a young bank employee to find 2 more chairs. At the next desk over, there was another couple, perhaps older than her parents. The woman held a placid, poodle-like dog in her lap and gazed around with cataract blue eyes. Her mother looked over and wiggled her finger, made a kissy sound. The dog's ears perked up. "What a pretty dog," her mother said, "so well behaved." "Princess is very well trained," the woman said. "Our dog Annie, she would shake your hands with both paws," Mom said. "She was so smart. Patrick, he taught her to chase coconuts." Annie had died 3 years ago. Corinne watched her father gently take his wife's hand. When the other couple's employee returned with a sheaf of paper and the woman turned away, Dad squeezed Mom's hands. "Honey, let's take care of business now, all right?" "All right." But Mom kept wiggling her fingers at Princess, who peered over under the crook of the woman's arms. Kenneth had their papers, Alejandro had his, and business began. But Corinne couldn't concentrate. As the 3 men talked through over everything around them, business and legal phrases washing over her, she watched her mother wiggle her fingers at Princess. She remembered Anna and Annie, one of the smartest dogs she'd ever known, and whose death at a normal old dog's age had nevertheless devastated her mother. Shortly afterwards, Dad mentioned that her mom had tried to put a saucepan away in the microwave, crying when it wouldn't fit. Corinne wondered what the other couple's story was. When the dog left with the other couple, her mother began looking around. She pulled her scarf closer and absently smoothing the silky corn over her jaw. It made Corinne sweat watching her. And then suddenly, God, they were finished. Corinne signed the papers that were put in front of her and blinked, and they were out in the parking lot again. They'd done it. How they did it, Corinne had no idea. Mom had answered Alejandro politely and correctly whenever she was asked something, even though she kept looking around as though trying to figure out where she was. But her husband and son's voices carried over her, their familiarity imbuing her with confidence. She was with them, so she was fine. And her daughter was there holding her hand, so she was fine. She was in a bank she visited every week for 20 years, and she knew these walls, and so she was fine. Something must have seeped in just enough to keep the anxiety at bay. Some things still did. Kenneth clambered into the passenger seat. Her big brother actually looked more bewildered than triumphant. Like he couldn't even believe all the tension and anticipation and preparation had led to such a simple victory. A victory for a battle that hadn't happened. Now Kenneth's adrenaline was draining into nervous energy with nowhere to go but the perspiration on his receding hairline, into his slumped shoulders, into his arsenal for the next time. She felt the same way. She understood. This is what it would be like from here on out. All this preparation for battle, the rise of adrenaline, the readiness for combat and emergency, and just as often, the energy left, surging and ebbing with no place to go, a place to draw from when a true emergency rose, but which existed and left her constantly hanging cliffside at all other times. Corinne helped her mother into the back seat, and then she reached over to fix the scarf, which was sliding over her mother's shoulder. "Thank you, dear," her mother said. "You're welcome, Mom." Corinne had a flash of Samantha standing in her place, helping Corinne into a car. She stepped back. "You guys head home. I'm going to walk back." Her father smiled from the driver's side. He looked happy, peaceful even, though tired. "Oh, it's a gorgeous day." "You're going to walk all the way back?" Kenneth said. "I need to walk it off," Corinne said. "You can handle it," she added, just to watch her brother's eyes narrow in irritation. Always fun. Some things never changed. But she relented a little. "I'll pick up some stuff for dinner on the way." "I want the spicy ahi," Kenneth said. "And can you get some beer?" "I'm not carrying a six-pack all the way home, Ken." "I can go back after we get home," their father said. "Never mind, Dad, I'll figure it out," Kenneth conceded. The car drove off, the men still discussing logistics of getting beer. Corinne watched them go, hands shielding her head. She had sunglasses on, but no hat. Also, she was wearing flip-flops, but it wasn't far, a little under 2 miles. She hoped Samantha had found that damn cat. Otherwise, her mom would obsess about it for the rest of the day. The paperwork was already likely forgotten, but Melly and Anna were not. What kind of brain allows that type of memory banking when you remember a dog that died 3 years ago, but only vaguely recognize the 18-year-old grandchild in front of you? When you remembered to wear your brand new lovely scarf, but couldn't match which shoe to which foot? There were only small comforts left behind, tucked away in the crevices of her mother's fading familiarity, of her father's unflagging energy and humor, of her daughter's brimming compassion, and of her and her brother's new and strange necessary camaraderie. If something happens to Dad first, she thought, I hope Mom has forgotten him by then. About a half-mile into her walk home, grocery bag, ocean salad, sashimi, hooked into her shoulder, Corinne stopped at a shave ice stand. The Hawaiian rainbow with the ice cream and the azuki beans she ordered, refraining from a joke about adding a shot of tequila. Flavors didn't matter anyway. After a few bites, her mouth would be so frozen she wouldn't be able to taste it anyway. But the frozen sugar and the hydration combined with movement would still help all the stupid, unanswerable questions, would keep her cool for the long walk home, with the beautiful, inexhaustible ocean riding in, receding, and running alongside her.